Welcome to A Talk of the Clones. I'm here with Angel and Julie. I am Jaime. All right, and so we're going to talk about the new show coming up that is called The Bad Batch on Disney+. But we're first going to start talking about, I think, things leading into this, which is the Clone Wars.
So we're going to talk about the trailer and cherry pick our way through the old episodes.
Yeah, I think, once the first episode comes out, we're going to do an episode per episode. But in the meantime, right now, we're just going to talk about things leading up to it. We're going to cherry pick things and talk about it some.
Absolutely. Sounds like a good starting point here. I guess I could probably, do a little promo for the Clone Wars. If we have any fans listening in on this that have not actually checked out the Clone Wars animated series, I feel that a lot of fans may be put off by consuming animated content, especially if they're just fans of the live action Star Wars. But I really, really got to say that they got some really good stuff in these shows. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you got to jump into the Bad Batch, no doubt about it.
I think what happened personally, this was aimed more towards children, and the whole animated aspect of it was kind of hard to swallow when it first came out. And the 2008 movie was not the greatest. The animation was not divine. It's definitely gotten better. And then that last season 7.
It wasn't exactly a good starting point.
Yeah, season 7 was great. The animation has just come so far, and the storylines are actually very, very dark. Perfect for adults, even though it is kind of like a children's show still. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, as somebody who, I watched the original movie, I was told by a bunch of Clone Wars fans that, that the series was fantastic and the storylines were really intriguing and interesting. But I started with the original movie and then went on to the first season, and I'll be honest, the animation was kind of rough. But after watching some later, newer episodes from season, I think 7 and maybe season 6 even, the animation doesn't bother me the way it did before, and I can really forget that I'm watching a CGI-ish animation style and just kind of dive into the story, which I like about it. And I'm really excited about that going into the Bad Batch, because the Bad Batch looks more looks like that better animation style, and so I can focus on the story and not be so upset about the animation.
Yeah, 100%. I remember watching. I was one of those people that actually did go to theaters to go see when the Clone Wars first little movie that they launched the series with, and looking at the animation when it started back then to season 7. Man, I agree with you so much, because there were moments in season 7 I was watching that I was like, man, I'm really zoned out, and it almost looked real, especially the space sequences. I think the ships look so crispy, beautiful,
Oh yeah.
That you forget that what you're watching is animated.
I think it's hard just because LucasArts at the time was an independent studio, but then we had Disney Pixar producing such fantastic animation that it was hard to watch. In contrast, when Disney acquired Star Wars and Lucasfilms, it was just a huge downgrade from going from Clone Wars animation to going to the new Rebels animation. And still it's kind of a hard to swallow pill.
There's also a different artistic style too. So it was distinctly very this is a Disney XD type show, where it's
they pulled out the kids, House of Mouse animators, and they were do some Star Wars stuff. Go.
It's Mickey's Clubhouse.
There we go.
it's that Mickey's Clubhouse animation.
This is a special lightsaber we're gonna need for later.
Well, lucky for us, they hired most of the animators from Clone Wars back, and those are the ones that are working on Bad Batch.
And Bad Batch, the trailers look fantastic.
Incredible. Yeah, they really do. They look it looks gorgeous. And you know what's funny thing? I noticed that they do stick true to the original animation style in a way. So specifically the coloring, I don't know how many people really especially if they jumped in later in the game.
I think the same ones, or the same artists that worked on season 7 are the ones that were developing and are developing Bad Batch. So that's probably why it looks
for
like
sure.
such a fluid transition from the Clone Wars to Bad Batch.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But if you ever notice the coloring on the characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's now I don't know if this is, I guess, the best way to describe it, but I see them almost as if like they're painted, right? So it has like a roughness to the coloring, right? So like you view like the 3D model, so to speak. We're getting a little more technical, I guess. When you look at the way that they're colored, the actual characters themselves, it almost looks like they've been painted with brush strokes. And that's kind of what they did specifically for the Clone Troopers in the earlier episodes of the series, like the earlier seasons. And they kind of really kept it. I was just watching the Bad Batch episodes from season 7, and you still see it there. It's obviously much more detailed now, but you kind of still get like that brushstroke look to it, and I think that's so unique and cool.
I think that's probably why, now that I think about it, why the Clone Wars cosplayers look like they were just plucked from the animation into real life, because they use the same kind of painting styles to paint and weather their armor. So yeah, I would agree with that.
No doubt about it. I think it's a unique thing, and it's a nice touch on that. So, who is the Bad Batch?
Yeah, I was gonna say where how were they introduced into the story originally? Because we're getting a whole show about them, but they're from the Clone Wars show. So, how were they originally introduced?
I say we go to our resident lore expert for this one.
I agree.
I mean, we got the Jedi archives right here on the pod, so we might as well let her rip on that one.
The Bad Batch is essentially a group of clones that have desirable defects. And it's a throwback to the episode of Clone Cadets where Echo and Fives and Heavy and that kind of group of clones that we followed through the Clone Wars is introduced, because they have one defective clone called 99 there. And the Bad Batch is also known as Clone Force 99. So that's pretty much where that episode, Clone Cadets, really sets the stage for Bad Batch to be possible later on.
And what are the Bad Batch? I think you've told me before that they were specifically made for a reason, but they didn't turn out the way they wanted them to. Is that right?
It's weird because you do have the clone commandos, and I think Hunter is probably the only commando there, if I'm not mistaken. But it's just, they're not considered regs because they have defects. But they end up being a group of commandos essentially because they have these qualities that the regs don't.
So how did they become one group of people? Was there
I think they threw all the defects together into Clone Force 99, and that's what it was.
You think the people who were in charge of them were like,
oh yeah,
we're just going to take all the ones who were shitty and put them in one place and then make them a team and hope for the best?
I mean, that's what we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean in that episode, Clone Cadets, it was in season 3, I think it is. I believe that they already kind of established in that episode that the clones that are defective are put on jobs like maintenance things.
Yes, they essentially don't pass or graduate. Into field work.
They don't. They're kind of just like, hey, yeah, you're defective, so here, go
clean up
toilets.
some garbage. Here you go.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, damn, man. Felt bad for our boy 99 over there. That man looked like he had a heart of gold.
Yeah, I know, and even the other clones are mean to him, which I think was even worse.
But that that's kind of how it is, like schoolyard bullies kind of thing. But then they learn their lesson and all that. I think every Star Wars story, especially anything that Dave Filoni's working on, it stays true to George Lucas's kind of MO when it comes to Star Wars, that you can tell a universal story that anybody can enjoy, but it fundamentally does have to give lessons to the little kids that may be watching it. So that's always the North Star of the franchise in a way. And that's why every episode starts off with some kind of life lesson and all that. And the episodes are structured in that way, but also keeping it not so childish, so that anybody can watch it and enjoy it and partake of it. I think that's what it is. I think that's why some fans probably get like a little like, I guess disappointed when Star Wars doesn't like triple down on being really edgy and dark. But I think that's the reason why they never really do it. I think because they want to keep to that whole thing. And this is a franchise that gave us Anakin slicing kids. So,
Yeah.
Off screen, of course.
But also this, I mean, it's still, not the Bad Batch, but the Clone Wars, even though it has that childlike storytelling, I guess, it still has some darker themes to it that can be inferred. Yeah. I don't think it's watching it as an adult. I don't think it's like, this is awful because it's made for kids. It's like, okay, I see why they are not diving deeper, or showing certain things, but it definitely feels like you definitely feel the dark undertones of what's happening, even though you're not necessarily watching or hearing those things happen, in real time. Kind of like watching Anakin slice those kids up.
Absolutely. It's like a tightrope act,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pitch that to Lucasfilm. I'm gonna animate it myself. I'm gonna be like, this is the graphic scene of Anakin murdering all the children.
I mean, there's still that theory where the little blonde kid at the beginning or at the end where he's like, Master. The only one that's called Anakin Master, by the way, in the entire series. And he absolutely kills him. There's still that theory that he ended up being Snoke that we'll never find out. Sorry, I'm on board with that.
Hey, I love how even after those two, we get episode 8 and 9, people just are like, you know what? Let's just keep up with the Snoke theories. Let's just keep them going. Why not?
Why not?
But yeah, the Bad Batch is essentially a group of clones. I think that I could be wrong, but I think that they're these clones that kind of got funneled into combat roles specifically because their defects happen to be beneficial. I think that's essentially what they're trying to really establish with them in season 7 when we're really introduced to them. That their defects happen to be very beneficial for combat roles, and that way they get a little more variety out of them, even though they're all genetically coming from the same source.
Yeah, I was very upset when I found out because I have been wanting something to continue Clone Wars for years, and when they announced that Bad Batch was out of all the fantastic clones and all the other expanded universe and legend stuff that we could have picked up of, I was like, oh man, these super campy, cringy clones that they introduced for like 2 episodes in season 7 are what's going to be the next episode. But I guess it really is kind of like a wholesome message of, Disney's wholesome message, despite your differences and defects, you could still be useful in the end. You could still make friends and have adventures.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's kind of what they're what I mean. Even Lucas would have wanted that, right? Because I mean, this is still his brainchild. The series itself started off with Lucas, and for the most part, it's the same team working on this stuff, or at least the same creatives from back then working on this franchise now. Specifically the animated branch. It seems to me like, yeah, there's definitely always really been like that push, because even on its face, right? I think why a lot of people probably didn't like the Attack of the Clones movie, despite its absolutely stellar love story with wondrous dialogue. Despite that, which I mean, I don't know about you, bro. Romeo and Juliet, watch out. But when I think a lot of people, from a writing standpoint, right? If you're gonna have a war story, you need to have stakes. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to sell stakes when your audience knows where this is ultimately gonna go. You know that the Empire is gonna rise out of this. We may not know how it gets to that point, but we know it gets to that point. And also, one side is lifeless robots,
right?
And then the other side is just copies of the same person. So what are the stakes if you can produce infinite amounts of both people that are actually fighting and dying? And I think that Clone Wars does a fantastic job of really pushing, I guess, personifying maybe the clones,
Yeah.
giving them a lot of character.
Definitely.
Even though it's like twins, you know, you have like people that are genetic twins, like, but they have super different personalities. And I think that's always been a recurring thing with throughout the whole Clone Wars series. This whole
This idea that
them
everyone is
reaffirming
unique.
that no, we are individual. It's like when Fives gets mad at that droid for calling him 5555, right? And he's like, no, it's Fives, right? Like they
Fives with an
like
S,
always
yes.
snap back and double down. Exactly, with an S. And the droid's like, oh, five.
That's the same thing.
You know? Yeah. And he's like, it's not much of a difference. He's like, oh, but to us it is, because that's their identity, right? And I think that the Clone Wars series really sells you that in a good way. And to what Jamie was talking about, right? He mentioned that you can gather these sort of themes as an older viewer. You can see what they're implying at and what they're hinting at and what they're suggesting with the themes that are being presented to you, right? That a kid might not pick up on it, but as an adult viewer, you definitely do pick up on it, right? I think that's one of those things. They're reaffirming their identity, right? They're all clones of each other, of the same source, but they reaffirm that individuality, I guess. And it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. And the Bad Batch is a little different because they're very visibly different from each other.
Yeah, and I think genuinely speaking, or generally speaking, that's why the Clone Wars was such a successful show originally. Because I mean, like 7 seasons is a lot, and it probably did so well because it's such a, in the movies we only see the stormtroopers as, like basically
Picking up Obi-Wan's lightsaber and robe whenever he dropped it is pretty much like
right.
all we got of the clone troopers.
Yeah, like the clones were not like they were there. Like they were definitely visually stunning in the movies, but they're never. We don't get a lot of the lore. We don't get a lot of the backstory. We don't really get even in the newer, the episode 1, 2, and 3. We don't get a ton of them. And this is a really interesting story to get to dive into what it's like to be a clone. Because that's one of those things that I think as a kid, whenever I found out that stormtroopers were clones, that was mind-boggling to me. Like, what is it like to be, born to do this very specific thing, and like how does it work? Like, what are the details of it? And this series opens that up.
So writing on that, we're essentially going to see, throughout all of Clone Wars, all 7 seasons, one of the reoccurring themes is that the clones know that they were born and bred for war. Well, war is over now. Order 66 happens. They have to find their footing, so to speak. Are we going to see the programming continue, or are we going to see some of the older clones that survive Order 66? Are we going to see any of their individualities anymore? Maybe that's why they needed these defective clones. Maybe they don't have the chip because they didn't bother. Like, this guy, he's not going to make it. Why bother giving him a chip?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're able to resist Order 66, if that's even possible. I guess we'll see in that 75-minute opening.
Yeah. That's actually a question I was going to pose to you, Jedi Archives, because I didn't know. I actually thought about that earlier today. I'm like, wait a minute, why didn't the Bad Batch wasn't around for Order 66 from what I remember. So did they have those inhibitor chips? I would think they did, but maybe you got a point there. Maybe they didn't put them in there because they thought, all right, well, these guys are defective, so they're not gonna,
Well, in the old EU, there were some clones that were specifically bred to have more individualities than the regular clones. So there was this implication that they did not follow through with Order 66. A lot of those clone commanders and ARC troopers actually chose to defect, essentially, from the Republic while, all the Jedis were getting killed. So I thought it would maybe be kind of like one of those, since technically they are commandos, that they could go without the inhibitor chip.
That's true. That's a good point. They might work that back in there. What I do like that Disney's doing is that they're reworking a lot of the old EU.
Yeah, slowly, little by little.
which is fantastic.
I can't wait for more Revan stuff. But anyways.
Well, I'm excited about the fact that first episode is, what'd you say, it was 75 minutes long?
Yeah.
It's about 75. I think it's like
75.
72 or 75 minutes. Algo así.
Yeah, because there was a leak on the interwebs that showed the first 3 episodes, and the first episode it's like a whole movie.
They have mentioned it before, even before the leak came out. It was just kind of like the confirmation, but they were expecting to have like about a 70-minute premiere, followed by another 30-minute episode just like 3 days after May 4th. But I would expect that we're going to see Order 66, at least I'm expecting to see Order 66 during that opening, and kind of just, I guess, everything else, them kind of being obviously in a lineup where Palpatine is like screaming about the First Galactic Empire, and then you could clearly see like the Bad Batch standing out amongst all the other regimes that are gathered. But so I think we'll see some questionings, definitely. In the trailers, we've seen some footage that looks like maybe this starts a little bit before Order 66. Like we'll get to see them, fighting the Separatists. But there's also I don't know. It's a lot of interesting footage.
Yeah, that first trailer was it gave us a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, and they've been dropping like themed trailers every single day for the past, I think 4 days now. It's going to be a trailer a day with highlighting each character until May 4th. And then they showed the one with Tech. He's like hacked one of the battle droids, and he's riding on its shoulder while eliminating other targets. And I don't know if it's them being put through one of the courses while Tarkin was overseeing, and that's what it is, or if it's actually like out on the field and them still fighting the Seppies.
Y'all want to do speculation?
So yeah.
You want to do some speculation?
Yeah. Oh.
I'm just thinking like, so who is this?
Who's Omega?
Who's Omega? That's the big question, right? Like,
I thought, at least for a while there, that Omega was a Palpatine clone, and that was how they were going to tie in the new sequel trilogy and saying, boom, here's Rey's dad, instead of having to imagine Palpatine trying to bang anyone. Yeah. I feel like it's a little easier to swallow.
You. That's so close to mine. I'm disappointed now.
I mean, it's got the same hair.
I think, yeah. This, all right. So, Jamie, you're last now. I'm going in now. It's over.
Go for it.
All right. So, here is my crackpot theory. Are we now? How explicit am I allowed to get on the pod?
Like rated R, NC-17.
Okay. All right. So, kids, now's your warning. So, like I was saying, man, I think that Omega, right? Omega is Palpatine's daughter. I think Palpy did in fact clap those cheeks, baby, 100%.
No.
And I think the fact that Omega is like chilling with these defective clones is gonna be this whole thing. I don't think Omega's gonna make it out of it. Matter of fact, I don't think any of them are gonna make it out of it. I think eventually all these dudes are gonna get clapped at one point or another. You know
I actually think
different,
Echo is gonna
be for clapped.
I think Echo is going to be the basis for the Dark Troopers that we see in The Mandalorian. He's already more than like 50% robot, so I think that's where we're going to see the progression. But that's my crackpot
I didn't
theory.
even think about that yet. Yeah.
That's
That's not that crackpot. That the precedent is there.
Yeah, that is true.
I can see that.
And we do have that one highlighted trailer where he's just like, where Tech says to Echo, "You're more machine than man," and then he's fighting all the regs in like the cafeteria. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, no doubt. I think before we move on to that next point, I want to hear Jamie's Omega theory.
My Omega theory.
We got Palpy claps and Palpy doesn't clap.
I don't think he claps. Of course, I live with Julie, so I tend to lean towards her theories on this stuff because she knows a lot more about it than I do. But I do think Omega is a clone. I think that, and I do think Omega will have something to do with Palpatine in some way, as far as the last episode of the live action movies that we got, because they need to fix that badly. And so I think this will do hopefully a better job of, telling a story that leads us into that than the movie did. But that's my that's as deep as I guess I want to get with it, is that I do think Omega has something to do with Palpatine and how he clones himself. But I think that's pretty much the extent of how because I have no idea. I have not watched the show as deeply as either of you. I've only watched a handful of episodes throughout the years. I did watch some Bad Batch episodes from season 7, I believe, which I thoroughly enjoyed the idea that they were, these defective clones that they didn't really fit in with the rest of them, and so they went off and did their own thing. So I'm personally excited about seeing where that goes. But as far as Omega is concerned, I just think that she is, and I guess we got confirmation that it is a lady, a girl. I do think she is a clone, but I don't know,
So from a more logical point of view, using context clues, I do think Omega's a clone. She wouldn't be on Kamino otherwise. I definitely think she's force sensitive. She might be a mixture of what was left of Django's DNA and a mixture of Palpatine's DNA, and that's how we came forth a force sensitive clone. And the weapons that they showed her using is the Night Sister bow, which is used by essentially force sensitives, essentially. So I do think Omega is a force sensitive clone. Maybe the first successful force sensitive clone, and then she is trying to escape. The Bad Batch is trying to help her. Palpatine and Tarkin are both after her because they're like, oh my god, we now have figured out how to, create force sensitive beings. And so that's what I think.
That'd be so fucking cool.
Force sensitive.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense how Palpatine's clones have come about,
right?
With force sensitivity.
I think they're kind of going that route in Mandalorian, though. I think that's what the whole scene with the Dark Troopers. I think it's because we did literally see what I can only describe as an early prototype Snoke in one of those Bacta tanks. In that one episode of Mandalorian. I mean, that's true. That was very visually a prototype Snoke.
I mean, I think that Grogu is an asset because he's force sensitive. Maybe because they lost Omega, they took so many steps backwards in trying to clone force sensitives, and that's why they're trying to get, I guess, Grogu essentially. And then they had a few Snoke failures until they got one that kind of worked, and then they reproduced Palpatine through that. So yeah.
This is why I think Palpy claps. I'm gonna give you my my Palpy claps.
Did they show a flashback or something of Palpatine clapping in the sequel trilogy, or is it just my mind manifesting images I don't want to see?
Fiction.
Okay.
I've seen a lot
only in my fan fiction that Lucasfilm has rejected many times. So
sure.
It's not canon yet, but maybe they just stole the idea. You know what I'm saying? Hear me out. The reason why I kind of would like them to go that route with Palpatine having had a relationship is because it helps humanize the Emperor to a degree, where it would show him having some kind of motivation outside of just wanting absolute power for whatever reason. Because usually people that want that kind of absolute power, it's because circumstances in their lives have been out of their control. I'd argue that that's mainly the reason why Vader turned, why Anakin turned into Vader tragically, because he could not see a situation where he could control events so that Padme wouldn't die. Right?
I mean, he was turning before Padme died.
Right.
And we see that.
No doubt. But we see the catalyst of his turn is these visions of Padme dying, and he wanted to prevent that, right? He always had like that kind of inkling of the dark side, always there. But I mean, what Jedi doesn't constantly struggle with that to a degree?
Obi-Wan.
Obviously, I think the Masters may have that over. Yeah, but that's like
Obi-Wan
the goat,
is like
dude.
the picture perfect Jedi.
You know what I'm saying?
The sweet cinnamon roll has never
got
done
the
anything
best
wrong.
hair and everything.
Like he even like banged women and never strayed from the light side. So
What a gentleman.
I know.
Or is that what you're saying?
He's got excellent powers of
Jedi has
persuasion.
side chicks, but as long as he's following the rule book, he can have the side chicks.
Well, I mean,
That's
like in
not fair to
Clone
the side
Wars
chicks.
during when they introduced Satine.
What a misogynistic turn! Oh my goodness, I'm literally shaking right now.
Well, there's that theory that Corky is Obi-Wan's son, so there's that.
You think they're gonna give him? You think they're gonna give Obi a kid?
I mean, they
They're
might
gonna give
have.
him,
I mean, that was
some
implied.
outside of
Who
that?
the hell is Corky? It's like his auntie and Obi-Wan were banging for quite some time, and Obi-Wan was just like, if you would have asked me to leave a Jedi Order, I would have. So I still think Corky is a
That's very
bastard son of
Victorian.
Obi-Wan. Yeah, Corky. I don't know.
That's very Victorian.
No,
era
Padre
Star
Madre,
Wars.
but whatever.
Yeah.
Corky's gonna come find old man Ben in the desert and just be like, yo, Dad, let's hang out.
He aged like shit. You're gonna
Yeah.
give us an explanation on that. I need it badly. Like how does this Ewan McGregor?
I think
Clearly
he
looks very good.
He probably just
gotta
overexerts
age like
his
ass.
force abilities and it ages him, and that would explain why Palpatine went from like, okay, old man, to like, fucking mummified being, I guess, with all the
Maybe he has a
is that,
drinking
like,
problem.
the chain lightning
Yeah.
or force lightning, whatever it's called now. Let's see, like
True,
chain lightning,
true,
like I was
true.
playing fucking World of Warcraft, but yeah, force lightning.
But I would like Palpatine. I would like that story of Palpatine having a real daughter, right? Because that would make because I think that to a certain degree they're definitely gonna do what they did with the original, not the original, the prequel trilogy, where they use the extra material like the Clone Wars series and whatnot to sort of correct and fill in some of the gaps
Yeah.
left by the prequel trilogy. I mean, come on, they have to do that for the sequel trilogy because that was a little messy to say the least. So they definitely could have a lot of room for that, and I think a really good hole to plug, which isn't really a hole, I guess, but yeah, it's not. It didn't get sold too well. The Palpatine just letting Homeboy go off and be a clone, just vibing, just because he was like functional. You know what I mean? That isn't. It doesn't seem like something Palpatine would do. And I think that if he at one point did have a daughter that he loses for whatever reason, it might leave a little room there as to like why he would let a clone of his go out and be, living and whatnot and just doing his own thing.
Well,
But obviously he's still evil, so he's ultimately going to want to use those people, but...
Palpatine is like a puppet master. He lets people get
Mhm.
as far as I think they're getting, and then he was like just 20 steps ahead of you this entire time. So maybe he's just like, yeah, kid, go out and populate and see if you could, give me a real stellar force sensitive grandkid or something, So that's always an option.
Yeah,
Kind of like
I
how he
think
did
that was
with
what it
Darth
was
Maul.
for.
He never killed Maul, and it wasn't until Maul became a rival where he was just like, instead of killing you, I'm going to use you to my advantage. So maybe he does purposely leave a daughter out into the world and he kind of like keeps his eye on her.
He's the most powerful man in the galaxy. You're going to tell me he doesn't clap? Come on, man. Come on, man. Palpy claps.
I mean, maybe he just didn't want to
The
raise a
Lucy
kid because he
over
didn't want to
here,
take
Team
breaks.
Palpy claps.
Team Palpy claps. Should make a t-shirt.
Hashtag.
Hashtag Palpy claps.
That'll be the official T-shirt
Nice.
for the podcast. Helping claps.
Designed by Balenciaga.
I do have a feeling we're going to see some of Mandalore.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, because Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni
Mandalorians
can't
are
stay
hot
away
right
from
now.
Mandalore.
They're hot right now. I mean, come on, dog. They can't stay away from sexy armor is what they can't stay away from.
Or Beskar.
Come on.
Remember, it's Star Wars. It's not armor. It's Beskar.
Well, that's the specific excuse me, that's the specific metal with which the highest grade Mandalorian armor is made.
That's true. They
Okay.
did like Beskar before was just like the term for armor, and then Dave Filoni and John Favreau were like, "Hey, we changed our mind. Beskar is only going to be for this one specific type of like metal."
Yeah.
But whatever.
They have so
I'll
much
take
power.
it. Think we'll see Grogu? What if the Bad Batch helps Grogu get off Coruscant?
Yo, I'm not ready for animated Grogu.
It's gonna be cute.
I'm not emotionally ready.
So in all Star Wars, there has always been more than one villain. So the definitive villain, or villain number one, would be General Tarkin, or is he Admiral Tarkin at this point? And then
I think he's Admiral.
is he Admiral Tarkin already? Okay.
He might be.
And then there's one clone that betrays them all, which we already know from like the leaks and stuff like that. So you could thank the Black Series
he
leaks.
sus in that trailer anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was always kind of
He
like.
might actually he always did have that he was like too standoffish. You know what I'm saying? He was too antagonistic.
Yeah.
In season 7.
This is why Rex had to like push him over and tell him to shut up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know why it is, right? It's because he's only got one eye, and Star Wars is a very ableist franchise.
He's already defective and now he has one eye. There's actually theories that he's albino and that's why he's got like that weird ass like gray hair and lighter skins.
I think it looks cool though. He looks pretty awesome.
It looks like he's got an eating disorder.
That's what it was. He doesn't eat properly, but his aim is like on point. All right, that. Well, he crosshair. It was a crosshair, right? That's his name, Crosshair. Yeah, he's sus, dude. He's for sure. Come on, he's gonna betray them 100%. And you said that the leaks already confirmed that.
Yeah, the Black Series Crosshair figure confirms that Cross listens to Order 66 and then pretty much like abandons the Bad Batch when they decide to go rogue. And then Lego also confirmed it, and then there is a officially licensed calendar going around where it's Crosshair and his quote is good soldiers follow orders.
Oh, very ominous. We know where that comes
so that's
from.
the whole
If
thing. Like
didn't
maybe
watch the earlier seasons, yeah.
Maybe the inhibitor chip doesn't work on all of them, and it did work on Crosshair, and he's just like, peace, you guys. I'm going over to the dark side.
Or maybe he's just a massive ass and he just followed the orders anyway. He's like, oh hell yeah, we're killing Jedis now. I'm in on this.
That would actually be a lot more intriguing.
Hell yeah.
Maybe then he's after
I think so,
Omega
too.
in particular because she is a soon-to-be Jedi, and he's just like must eliminate her.
Oh, that would be so fucking cool.
Yeah.
So like she's force sensitive, and he's like, we gotta follow this order,
And we gotta kill her.
even though like she was possibly made by Palpatine. That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
If like he's going against Palpatine's wishes, but also following those orders.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
what did that be? I mean, that's maybe too.
maybe
crazy.
they do want to eliminate Omega because Omega has too much free thought or something, or too much.
I don't know. Hot take. My new theory is Palpatine created Omega. She's a force sensitive clone, and then Crosshair decides that because she's force sensitive, Order 66 belongs to her. Or
she must eliminate her.
Right,
Or he must
right.
eliminate her due to Order 66.
hot
Yeah.
take. You heard it here first, guys. Hashtag Palpatine class.
I got a lukewarm take. Exactly what Jamie just said, but she's not a clone. Palpy claps. That's his daughter. He's trying to get his daughter back, keep her under control. Crosshairs murders her anyway because he ain't about that Jedi life, baby. He don't like it. So he murders her anyway. And then Palpatine's like, no. Oh, well, we got to clone. We got to do these force sensitive. You know what I'm saying? Because like, the reason why I'm not sold on that whole force sensitive clone thing is because I feel like that's the Grogu arc. They're using him to like kind of harvest his like Mandalorian.
I mean, it would make sense
rich
that they're
blood,
using
you
Bad
know?
Batch to kind of continue the Mandalorian, like kind of fill those arcs. That's why I'm convinced that we're going to see some stuff with Mandalore. We're going to see how, or if Mandalore gets absolutely annihilated by the Empire or not. We might see that here, especially since a lot of, the clones are long lost sons of Mandalore because there are, clones of Jango Fett, who's a Mandalorian.
True. What was oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank now on her name. The one who comes in the season 2 of The Mandalorian with the armor.
Bo-Katan?
Bo-Katan, yeah. We're gonna learn Bo-Katan's skincare routine.
Oh.
So why she looks so wonderfully young. So
Yeah.
many years after the
I
Clone
think it's like
Wars.
50.
We're gonna
She
learn
would
her
be like
skincare
50,
routine in this
50 years old, I think. 55 or 56. Someone did the math. So.
Bo-Katan
I mean, I
is
think
Pharrell
she
Williams'
is kind of older,
illegitimate
in, like, her
daughter.
life, right?
Well, I think that she
Actress.
was the actress is pretty much that age. But
Yeah.
in Clone Wars, remember Clone Wars takes place over a period of about 8 years. So that's how we see, Ahsoka go from like a preteen to kind of like a young woman / older teen. So the most that we could have seen Bo-Katan age when she was introduced is 8 years, and then there's however long it takes Luke to age, which was another 18 years or 20 years. I don't know how old Luke Skywalker is. Oh, but this is even after. So I think she'd be around 50 years old. Then again, we don't know how long humans age or can live for in the Star Wars universe.
Well, and they could all be
All
different.
I know is that
Yeah.
And living on Tatooine sucks, so that's why fucking
clearly
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan's just
Bo-Katan's
drinking.
skincare routine was not forwarded in an email to Obi-Wan. Obi didn't get that email of the
He didn't get
skincare
that
routine
holograph.
because whatever he did was the opposite. Maybe I'm telling you, maybe he just has a drinking problem. He's just out in the desert drinking.
Or a lack of drinking
you know,
problem
with
because
his
there's no water.
No, that's true. That's also true. It's also true.
He's just dehydrated.
Maybe he spent too much time in the cantina,
Too much time
and that's
chasing
why he
Jawas.
knows it's a hive of scum and villainy.
Oh.
Crosshair sus.
Absolutely.
He's gonna kill Omega, which is Palpy's daughter, because Palpy claps.
Hashtag
Palpy claps.
And what else? What else did we talk about? Oh, Echo is gonna turn into a Dark Trooper.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes, Echo is laying the groundwork for what eventually becomes.
That
the
is
Dark
my
Troopers.
theory. So if it becomes like true, I just want to let it known that I was the first one that said it. Did not read this online. This is me laying in bed in the middle of the night
That's
thinking about Bad
there you
Batch.
go.
I'm like, huh.
Julie gets all the credit for that, and
There you go.
all the money, I assume, that comes along with being the first.
I would think so. I would think so. If I'll put in good word for you once Lucasfilm approves my Palpy Clap screenplay. Once Lucasfilm green lights it, I'll bring you on board.
Well, I guess if you're listening, thank you for tuning in to our first episode, and come back on May the 4th when we have our next episode, because we're going to do that. It's going to be on May the 4th. So may the 4th be with you.
Hashtag Palpy Claps.